Meeting is being recorded.
Good evening. Today is August 26, 2020. It is 7 p.m. and we are convening a regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Heights Board of Education. Mr. Muccio, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Etter.
Here.
Mrs. Schuker.
Here.
Mr. Suchaki.
Here.
Mr. Naaman.
Here.
Mr. Dobbins.
Here. 5 present, none absent. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to today's Board of Education meeting. The Ohio Legislature passed House Bill 197 in response to the COVID-19 public health crisis. That bill grants permissive authority to define state and local public bodies to hold public meetings by way of teleconference or video conference until December 1, 2020, or during the period of the COVID-19 emergency, whichever occurs first. In order to hold such meetings, the public body must meet the qualifications established in the bill related to providing adequate public notice, methods of public participation, and distribution of information and materials. The board believes that it has satisfied all of HB 197's criteria to hold today's meeting by teleconference or video conference. A copy of the board meeting agenda is available to review on our school district's website. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
to
to
the
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved. So
Uh,
moved.
Mr. Naaman moved. Second, please.
Second.
Ms. Schukert seconds. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to, if possible, separate 10E separate it from the consensus agenda.
Okay, so we're going to remove item 10E, which is otherwise a motion to approve communications contract with Aram Graham Consulting.
Correct. I'd like to have that separate so we can have a
Very good. Is there any
separate
other
discussion about
discussion?
it.
I'm sorry. Is there any other discussion about this evening's agenda? Hearing none, could we move to a vote then?
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mrs. Schuker.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Item 3 on the agenda is a new item. It is the staff spotlight, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Evans and Mr. Muccio for further comment.
Tom, do you want
I'm
to?
just going to give it a description. Last year, through discussions of the board, we were looking for some ways to recognize staff members that were going above and beyond, and we came up with a staff spotlight, as a way to recognize those board members. And this evening, we're kicking that off. It took us a couple months to put it in place, but we've gotten a couple very worthy recipients tonight, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Muccio to talk about our staff spotlight recognition this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Like Mr. Evans said, we have tonight the staff spotlight, and the 2 nominated employee members that we're spotlighting for the month of August 2020 would be Kathy Martin, our assistant treasurer, and Yelixa Rodriguez, our payroll and HR specialist. I nominated both Yelixa and Kathy to recognize them as our staff spotlight for the month of August 2020 for their outstanding work implementing our new financial software called the State Software Redesign. I have numerous bullet points in the public content that highlight what it took to implement the state software. I kind of want to turn it over to Kathy and Yelixa right now to just, maybe get a sense of what they thought, the implementation process was going through. Kathy, Yelixa, if you would like to say anything right now. If not, I can roll through it.
I mean, it's a big process to move over to a different software without
missing a beat. And, Ulixa did a great job with not missing anything with payroll, and we, kept the bills going out and everything. So we're getting paid. So, but I do want to say that it's very much appreciated, this board, Mr. Muccio, to be able to work for you guys. You're just stand-up people, quality people, and it's a pleasure every day to come to work for you guys. So I just wanted to say that.
Hi, so I'm going to, first and foremost, thank you so much for this recognition. It means a lot to me. I'm going to echo a lot what Kathy said. With Kathy and Matt in the office, I have tremendous support from them too. And so I think together as a team, we worked really great together to accomplish this. We did start this last year, continued through the summer. COVID may or may not have affected some things and made it a little bit challenging, but we pushed through. And it is my absolute honor to do what needs to get done for the school, for the staff, for the students, so that we can continue to be great. So thank you.
Yeah, I just thank you, Ulixa, and thank you, Kathy. They were, again, both outstanding and were the point people through this entire software conversion. Just wanted to highlight kind of a couple of those bullet points that we have in the public content. So September 18th, 2019, we had a NeoNet presentation to the Board of Education on eFinance Plus and the state software redesign that was done by NeoNet. We ended up choosing the state software redesign. So this whole process started back in September of 2019. And from there all the way until, I want to say, last month when we closed fiscal 20, it took the greater part of 6-7 months to go all the way through. Again, I did nothing through it. It was all Kathy and Ulixa. Without them, we're extremely lucky to have them in the treasurer's office and here at the district. And again, I just want to congratulate the great work that they did and their recognition for being the staff spotlight for the month of August 2020.
And I'm going to add a little bit into this too. For those people that are listening in that are wondering why we would have changed softwares, the state software that our treasurer's office was using prior to this dates back to the 1980s, and it was required that we work on that software for our state accounting system. And recently, the state has put in play that all schools are going to have to change over to either the redesign or a new software package. And we were one of the first districts to do that in Northeast Ohio. And so we were kind of the guinea pigs when it came to that. And Kathy and Ulixa and Matt did a tremendous amount of work in switching us over. And outside of maybe the Board of Education and myself and Matt, I don't know that any other staff member in the district would even know that a change has been made in it, because there's been no holdup, there's been no delays, there's been no glitches in any of our accounting systems, payroll or accounting systems through the whole process. And that's a credit to these two ladies, and what a fantastic job they did working their way through this. So truly appreciated.
Thank you.
And we have a formal resolution, and I'll read through. Whereas the Cuyahoga Heights School District has been fortunate to have dedicated staff committed to the mission of the district, and whereas both Kathy Martin and Ulixa Rodriguez have worked tirelessly in outstanding fashion to implement the state software redesign, our new financial software, and whereas Kathy Martin and Ulixa Rodriguez contributed significantly to the following implementation process timeline. And we have those bullet points here in the resolution. So whereas Matt Muccio, treasurer, has formally nominated Kathy Martin and Ulixa Rodriguez for their outstanding work ethic in this endeavor, and therefore be it resolved that the Cuyahoga Heights Board of Education congratulates Kathy Martin and Ulixa Rodriguez on their August 2020 selection to the Cuyahoga Heights School Staff Spotlight. Again, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And to formalize this, may I have a motion to approve both resolutions, please?
So moved.
Mr. Naaman moves.
Second.
Second by Ms. Etter. Any further discussion? Well, I'm going to jump in first and thank both ladies and the treasurer's office for some outstanding work. We truly appreciate it. And it's so easy to take something for granted when it's working so well, but we definitely and very much appreciate all of your hard work and your commitment to our district. So thank you.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to get to just thank you so much just for your work. It is so refreshing to see the positive results that come out of competency in the treasurer's office, and just the way that you guys work in collaboration speaks volumes. So thank you for being true leaders in this district.
Thank you.
And I'll echo all those comments too. I mean, I thank you so much for basically putting time towards the new software. I know it wasn't an easy task, but it was done so seamlessly. And it basically, it's nice to know, like Mrs. Schukert said, is that there's such professionalism in the treasurer's office, you know, and now and going forward. So thank you again, both of you.
I'd like to say thanks to both the ladies as well. I know they do good work and tireless work. And I also like to say thanks to Matt Mucho for taking the leadership to recognize some outstanding employees at our district. And thanks also because you give us greater confidence in that the Treasurer's Department is working well.
And having lived through some very difficult times with the Treasurer's Office, it is really very, very much appreciated on my view, from my part, of all the excellent work that all three of you are doing up there. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, Mr. Muccio, can we move to a vote?
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye. The motion's passed 5-0. And again, thank you very much, ladies, and Mr. Muccio. Item 4 on our agenda is comments from the public. I'm going to read a canned comment that you might have heard at previous meetings, but I'm also going to supplement it this evening, so please bear with me. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues and is now asking the public to email comments that it might have otherwise provided during the public comments portion of this meeting to the following email address, info@cuyhts.org. The board will strive to respond to all comments received as promptly as possible. As many of you may know, Superintendent Evans and his team have worked diligently this past week to adopt new Zoom meeting technology that allows the public to share their comments in a safe and secure manner. I extend a big thank you to Superintendent Evans and his team for this effort. I also extend a sincere thank you to all who have taken the time to write or phone board members or the administrative team to share their thoughts concerning district operations. With that said, I turn the public comments portion of this meeting to Mr. Evans and his team.
Okay, and I'm just going to read what I sent out today. So those that are in the waiting room, and thank you for being so patient. Just a few reminders, and this was in the email. First and foremost, the board does not generally respond to public comments at the time they are presented. The board may address public comments during the board comments section of the meeting. This is not a question and answer period. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Once the 3 minutes is completed, the technology moderator will remove you from the Zoom portion of the meeting. You may return to your YouTube to listen to the remainder of the meeting. And a total of 30 minutes have been set aside for public comments at this meeting. If you have specific operational questions, please feel free to contact the member of the administrative team directly with your questions. Their email addresses can be found on the school website. If you do not want to make the comment live, you may submit the comment to the superintendent and he will read it during the public comments portion of the meeting. And I did get an email that I will read at the end of this. And the board will also continue to respond to questions emailed directly to them, or you may choose the option of participating in the Board of Education meeting through Zoom to make your comments. Thank you. And at this time, I'm going to ask Matt to move in the first guest. I believe.
Mr. Evans?
Matt, yes.
Yes, I actually have a comment too that I'd like to read at the end too as well.
Okay, very good. Mr. Naaman and then myself. MAGAN was the first in the room, and I'm going to admit that person. I would ask that you please identify yourself and then go ahead with your comment. Megan? MAGAN? Let's try. You with me there, Matt? We just lost all of our waiting room guests.
They're actually in here
They're
now.
in. Okay. So let's try MAGAN. That's your screen name. You can go ahead with your comments at this point in time. Do we have our speaker turn on, Dave?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I see her in the system, like you could see her name.
Yes.
Why don't we put her on hold right now and just go to.
Okay, and the next was iPhone guest listed. I don't have a phone number with it. If you would please identify yourself and then go ahead with your comments. They're being connected to the audio right now, I see. I got April Torres in here too. It looks like April's connected. Can we unmute April? Dave?
Yes, I just asked her to unmute.
Okay. April, in your lower left-hand corner there. Are you with us, April?
I am.
Okay, go ahead, April. Sorry for the glitches there.
I guess I wasn't expecting to ask a question, but I do have many. So I guess my one question would be, why was a hybrid option pulled from us? I guess I'm confused by that. Because I feel like the majority of the parents had opted in for that option.
Again, April, I guess we'll address that later, but this is generally speaking not a question and answer period. If you have comments that you want to make.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't. No, I apologize. I didn't want to make a comment. I thought this was question and answer. I apologize.
Okay, and we'll come back.
I was asked to unmute and I was put on the spot.
Oh, no.
So I was just listening to, the meeting.
That's fine, but I guarantee we'll circle back around to that. MAGAN, Megan, you are also in the room. Do you wish to make public comment? Okay, we'll keep working our way down here. Sharv's iPhone, you're in the meeting. Sharv's iPhone, would you please identify yourself and would you like to make a public comment?
Yes, this is Charvette Fagar, and no, I will not like to make a public comment at this moment.
Okay, thank you. And am I missing anybody, Dave?
We still have iPhone in here.
Again, I think they're listening.
Hello, my iPhone?
Yes. Go ahead and list your name and.
This is Bill Nichols.
Yeah, Bill. Go ahead, Bill, with your public comments.
Hey, Mr. Evans, I appreciate it. Hey, listen, I've appreciated how Mr. Evans has gone about communicating with the public over the past month or so. And the only other person that has really had any opinion on it, in my mind, listening to board meetings, is Lindy, who I really appreciate it. We may not agree on everything and things may get heated. But you know what? I have not heard from another board member on how they came up with their opinion or how their decision was made. It's too important for them not to put themselves on record with why they made the decision they did to go virtually. And if it's only left to Tom, why is Independence still going to school? I know this isn't comments, this isn't questions, but I'll leave it at that. I appreciate it.
No, and that's fine, Bill, because I think that the board is planning on circling back around during board comments to address some of these things. We just, at this point, don't turn into a question and answer. So we truly appreciate your comments. And I think that the board is intending on kind of circling back around to address that when we get to that section.
I guess my comment was more in disappointment of the other board members not making their opinion publicly known. why they made their decision. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the waiting room that we have not given the opportunity to speak? Okay, I'm going to read from an email I got, and this is MICHPET. I know this is a parent that I've sent in an email, and they asked, please explain the rationale behind taking our choice for hybrid away despite, number one, the majority of parents' wishes, number two, CDC and AAP recommendations, and number three, our county going out of the red zone, those three items. So that was from MICHPET. And I know that that's a parent, they've emailed me previously and I've kind of responded to that, but that's their public, those are their public comments. And I think Mr. Naaman has a public comment to read as well.
Yes, Mr. Evans, I do. Actually, this is from Steve Harris, which is an alum from the class of '87. So he wrote this message to the board. It says, board members of Cuyahoga Heights School District. It says, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for the time and effort that you take care of our school district. I do rest easy knowing that you are there to do what is best for the communities, the staff, and the kids at Cuyahoga Heights High School. This year has been like no other that I can remember. The pandemic has changed all of our lives. Work, school, family gatherings, community activities are all different now. Information, guidelines, protocols seem to change quickly. This, I know, has made it difficult to make decisions. As a firefighter and paramedic for 26 years, I've come accustomed to orders, guidelines, and protocols. Early on during this pandemic, our protocols, as they pertain to COVID-19, seem to change daily. That made patient care very difficult. We simply do not know much about the disease, but we learned more as we adapt. As the year progressed, our protocols became more consistent and we learned how to better protect ourselves and the public. As most of you know, I've been a coach here at Cuyahoga Heights High School for many years. There are many similarities between coaching and participating in sports and extracurricular activities and being an officer of the fire crew. In both worlds, we follow orders and directions. We are disciplined and goal-oriented. We do what we need to do when we need to do it to accomplish those goals. We make sacrifices in order to benefit the team or the fire crews in my case. All those values and beliefs I learned in the extracurricular activities that I took part in high school and then in college. As we move forward with this unique school year, I believe that we need to understand how important extracurricular activities are for our kids. For many of them, it is the reason that they are motivated to complete their schoolwork. For many of them, it is something to look forward to at the end of their virtual learning day. Sports and extracurriculars provide the social interaction that kids and young adults desperately need. Without these activities, mental health issues like depression become more common, which can lead to many other issues much worse than COVID-19. Over the summer months, the coaching staff have followed the protocols set forth by Cuyahoga Heights High School and the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Our players have learned and in turn have shown discipline in following these protocols in order to have a season. When they are with us, they wear masks, wash hands, socially distance, and I welcome you to attend a practice and see how we have implemented safety measures to ensure a healthy, clean environment. We have discussions daily about protecting themselves and family members when they are back at home. These kids are doing their part. Let's let them have a chance at what we all want, getting back to normal. Finally, I realize that everybody has a reason or opinion on allowing these activities during this time. I respect your opinions. I have this simple reminder to all: extracurricular activities are voluntary. If a parent is worried about participation in these times, they do not have to have their child participate. I feel strongly that the rewards, social interaction, motivation to complete, developing discipline, sacrificing for others, outweigh the risk for a healthy young adult associated with the current violence of the virus. Once again, thanks for your public service. I know that this has not been easy. And respectfully, Steve Harris, class of 1987. So thank you, Steve, for your comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do any other board members have public comments that have been emailed to them that they would like to present at this time? For those that are tuning in on Zoom, this is our first time at this. We will get better at this. I appreciate your participation. And again, if there's anything additional that you want read at some point in time, please email it to me or the board members, or you'll be able to participate in the next board meeting as well. The new technology that we're working on tonight is new to us, so we apologize if we put somebody on the spot that didn't want to be put on the spot, but we do want to make sure that we provide community members the opportunity to make public comments at the meetings. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Mr. Evans and your team. We're going to move on now to agenda item number 5, which is the treasurer's business. And I turn it over to Mr. Muccio.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Recommendation 5A, motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th, 2020 regular meeting as found in attachment T1. Recommendation 6A, motion to accept the bank reconciliation, financial reports, and payments for board review as of July 31st, 2020, as prepared and certified by the treasurer is accurate, as found in attachment T2. Recommendation 6B, motion to approve new vendors to the school district per W-9s attached as found in attachment T3. Recommendation 6C, motion to approve purchase orders over 5,000 as found in attachment T4. And recommendation 6D, motion to establish the Coronavirus Relief Funds, CRF Fund, Fund number 510. And as for motions 5A, 6A through 6D.
May I have a motion for approval of the treasurer's consent agenda items, please?
So moved.
Mr. Naaman moves.
Second.
Ms. Schukert seconds. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to run through a few things. For the bank reconciliations and financial reports, item 6A, just wanted to point out 2 items. T2C is our budget versus actuals, and I'll open that on my screen. So as I open it, put it over here. It's very, very small. So if everybody's able to open it on their own screens too, but this is our first month of the new fiscal year, fiscal 21. And in it, this shows our beginning cash balance, which is column B, any encumbrances from the prior year, and then our beginning unencumbered cash. And then columns E and F would be our estimated revenues up to this point. So column E would be our estimated revenues prepared by the county, and they do this back in April. And then at the board meeting 6/24/2020, we approved our temporary appropriations, and I also updated our temporary revenues at that same time. So columns I in that area are going to begin our appropriations for fiscal year 2021. And again, that was board approved 6/24/2020, resolution 57-2020. Then we have our ending cash, current year encumbrances, and our ending unencumbered cash. So as we go through fiscal 21, we're going to have several modifications to our appropriations. And in turn, every time we modify our appropriations, I also adjust our revenues. So everything corresponds. We approved our temporary appropriations back on June 24th. So we need to approve our permanent appropriations for the fiscal year, and we'll do that in August or September. I'm thinking August though. Any questions, or I'll move on to the next item. Actually, there are 3 things I want to point out. The next item is going to be T2D, our lead sheet. Make this bigger. So this is our lead sheet for fiscal year 2021. And it's the similar setup to prior year, fiscal 20. So we have our beginning balance up here in the blue in the top left hand. It's going to be B number 1. That's $14,799,534. We can see our actuals for revenue and our actuals for expenditures for the month of July. All the highlights in green are estimates. And then we can see column N, our totals for the year. And then we can see column P, which is going to be our beginning fiscal 21 budget. And then we have columns Q and R to the right. which are empty at the moment. But when we have our November 2020 5-year forecast and then our May 2021 5-year forecast, we're going to update those figures, and that's going to update essentially our entire lead sheet as we go forward. So we know that there are going to be a lot of changes in this year as opposed to other years, only because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we have taking place right now. And the last item I want to point out is going to be item T2F, which is our unrestricted and restricted state aid. And the only item I want to point out here is going to be row number 2, which is our HB 164 payment. So if everybody remembers, there was a legislative bill that was passed, brought forth by Senator Matt Dolan, and that was an additional payment to school districts to partially offset Governor DeWine's executive order for his reductions that he had in place. So this additional payment to us was $138,000. So we received it in the month of July. So that's going to be recorded on fiscal 21's books, but it's really for fiscal 20. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody here. And those are the only items I wanted to point out for 6A, unless there are any questions. If not, 6B is just approving new vendors. We have 2 for tonight, nothing out of the ordinary. Item 6C is going to be our purchase orders over 5,000 for the board. And this is just for a boiler tank repair. Tom, do you want to talk on the boiler tank at all?
Just this is one of our main boilers. The typical three quote that Jim Zerbola went through on this. Actually, Tom Dalton is a resident, and Tom's quote was considerably less than the other 2 quotes, and all the attachments and all the quotes are on the board minutes. So anybody that's listening in and wants to access those and sees what the other quotes are can access that through the school website. Tom really spent a long time trying to find the right repair for us, and we appreciate that. And he's probably one of the foremost boiler people in the state of Ohio when it comes to some of the old steam boilers. He works with a lot of the greenhouse people that I know and grew up with, and we talk about that frequently. But I want to thank Tom for that. That was a big task to get done for us, and he did it in a pretty short period of time, finding the appropriate equipment for us with some old boilers right now. We know that we've got some boilers that are very, very old in the building right now, so we're keeping them running.
Item 6D, thanks, Tom, is to establish the coronavirus relief fund. So this is a new grant. So we have 2 attachments uploaded. The first is the notification of award for fiscal year 2021 from the Ohio Department of Education, telling us that we have been awarded $37,819 for this grant. Close out of here, I'm going to open the second attachment, which is the budget for the $37,819.01 grant. We've already been discussing this preliminarily. So if it's approximately $37,800, we'll round it up to $40,000. So $10,000 of that we're looking to be input for the cost of additional nursing services. And I know Matt Young is on the line right now. Matt, do you want to talk about those additional nursing services?
Yeah, so we've got 2 school nurses, as you may know, but we have a gap in coverage at the school. So what that means is our high school nurse would go over to the elementary school and cover for partial time to give a little bit more service to the elementary school, but it never covered the entire day. So what this does is it adds additional time so that we have full nursing services at the elementary school and at the high school for the 2021 school year. They have a lot of responsibilities they are going to have to fulfill this year. Everything from wellness checks with students who may feel ill to providing advice to staff members, community members, and children on symptoms and next steps, as well as other safety precautions. So I believe it's warranted, and this grant certainly helps that coverage.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And then the other 75%, if that's just the 25% we're looking at, the other 75% potentially, we're looking at laptop computers. And Mr. Young, do you want to touch base on that? It's just preliminary what we're thinking at the moment.
Yeah, working with the technology team, Mr. Wallace and Mr. Hartman. We've also talked about using the remainder of the funds to potentially offset the hotspots in the event we don't receive that 50% grant that we discussed at the last board meeting. This would help offset those costs, as well as purchasing additional Chromebooks that would, of course, help us with this new one-to-one program. It would allow us to start replacing some of those Chromebooks that are going to fall out of circulation a year from now. So it's a good time to use that fund, since we have gone one-to-one in a hurry as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it would be a good application at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And just a little background on this new grant per ODE. So the funding period is March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020. Due to the expiration date of December 30th, 2020, it is recommended to use these funds prior to using our CARES Act money. This fund may be used to cover expenses that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency, COVID-19, that we have in place. So those are all the recommendations I have for tonight.
Very good, Mr. Muccio and Mr. Young, thank you. We now proceed to a vote.
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mrs. Schuker.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. Mr. Muccio, other business?
Yes. I wanted to spend about 15 minutes or so discussing our capital assets. So I have two attachments here in the public content portion of board docs. And I just want to highlight how our capital asset schedule is created and how it traces to our financial statements. So if we open the first attachment, this would be our financial statements, specifically page 40. And I have highlighted here on the bottom half of the page, note 12, which is capital assets for our district. Then on page 41, on the top half, we have our depreciation expense as well. This figure right here, $554,778, is our depreciation expense. So that's this figure right here. So that's how the two pages are connected, but I'm going to stay on page 40 for the moment. So again, these are our financial statements in place. So I'm going to open the other attachment that we have, which is our capital asset schedule. And it's a little trickier doing it this way as opposed to in person. I'd have copies made in person and kind of go through this. So it's going to be interesting to kind of try to direct everybody through my computer as we go along. But I'm going to take an attempt at it. So on this tab here, and everybody, feel free to open on your own computer, and I'll try to carry forward here on the main screen. But what we have on the main screen here would be our capital assets for fiscal year 2019. We have fiscal 18 before, and before that, fiscal 17. So if I look at fiscal 18, what we want to look at would be this column right here highlighted on my screen. These numbers become the beginning numbers for fiscal 19. Then we have our additions, our deletions, and that's how we get our ending numbers for the year. Now these additions and deletions come to us from this orange tab that we have down here and this disposal tab in purple. I'm going to stick with the orange tab for the moment, which is our capital asset schedule for the our master schedule for the district. So in it, we have numerous columns and a lot of rows on it. And how it works is if we look at our land, land over here on our capital asset Excel. This is our, again, these are our financial statement figures that we have. And again, we have our supporting documentation down here, which traces back to our first screen, which are these amounts at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. And just to show everybody, we have land here on this line, which matches land here on this line. Land improvements, building improvements, furniture and equipment, vehicles. Then we come down here to our accumulated depreciation for land improvements, buildings and improvements, furniture, vehicles, and so forth. So back to our main sheet that we have. So how do the numbers trace back and forth? So as we see from our main sheet, I have my printout right here to go through it, which is a little easier as opposed to going on the big screen that we have here. But all of the cells from this sheet trace back to our financial statement sheet that we have here. So we're looking for our additions for land improvements. We'll come here to our capital asset schedule. We'll find land improvements. And we want to look at our additions. 435,467. This column here is our addition for that fiscal year. Again, it populates this cell, and that in turn becomes the financial statement figure that we have. Now, deletions of 668,150 come from this disposal sheet, purple that we have. So if I go here on the disposal sheet, we can see land improvements, and we can see the 668,150 amount that traces back. So if I scroll down, we're going to look at vehicles, and the same thing, $1,211,370 right here. Our additions are going to be $77,814, which is summed up down here, the total of these three lines. We have any disposals for vehicles, so 37,634, which would be 37,634 here in this deletion column on this row. And for accumulated depreciation, I'll look at vehicles as well. Actually, I'll go back to land improvements. So if I come here to our purple tab for land improvements, 183,742. That's going to trace back here to this cell, 183,742. So everything traces, and that's how it's built. So we have a lot of lines and rows on here. And let me stick with our vehicles and just show the accumulated depreciation that we have in place. So we have it carrying over from 17, 18, and 19 as well. And all these cells have formulas in them, which show how everything is arrived at. Any questions? Exit out of here. Again, back to our main screen with our financial statements. So that's just kind of how our financial statements are created. The numbers are populated for capital assets. Again, come from our overall master sheet that we have in Excel, and that master sheet, is controlled in the treasurer's office. Again, it's kind of hard to do this on the big screen instead of being in person, having printouts, kind of walking through this with everybody. Which, when we can all meet together, that's going to be item, it's going to be on the top of my list for presentations. And that concludes everything I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Muccio, for putting the time in that you have to beefing up our capital assets accounting. It's greatly appreciated, and I look forward to an in-person presentation, hopefully sooner than later. Thank you. With that, I refer to the next item on the agenda. Mr. Evans, I believe you're up.
Okay, Superintendent's business. 9A, accept the resignation of Caitlin Akerley as the freshman volleyball coach effective August 14th, 2020. 10, Superintendent's business agreements, contracts, and membership. A, motion to approve PSI service change form to increase the hours for the student health assistant at the elementary school from 6.0 hours to 7.5 hours per day, 5 days a week, 36 weeks for the 2020-21 school year to be paid with the coronavirus relief grant fund. Item B, motion to approve agreement with Hometown Ticketing, HTT, for Pro Plus premium ticketing services to include an online ticketing platform, cloud hosting, paper tickets, technical services, and support for the 2021 school year at no cost. C, motion to approve agreement with Platform Athletics LLC for online physical education and activity tracker for middle school, high school students for 2021 school year for a cost of $1,300, of which $300 will be paid for the attached requisition, and the remaining $1,000 will be paid in the form of staff reimbursement. D, motion to approve an agreement with Agile Sports Technologies for huddle services and for camera for all sports for 2021 school year. Skip to F. Motion to approve a special education agreement with Mentor City Schools CARES program for $69,000 effective September 20th, June 4th, 2021. G, motion to approve renewal of the Cuyahoga Heights Schools annual membership with the Cuyahoga Valley Chamber of Commerce at a cost of $325 per attachment. H, motion to approve Rip Show Studios Incorporated contract for 2021 school year for school photography services, including student and staff ID photos and other photography services as specified in the agreement at no cost. 11, Superintendent's business employment, motion to approve supplemental contracts for Sharon Sites and Dave Pasica as junior class advisors for 2020-21 school year at the stipend per supplemental pay schedule. And B, motion to approve mentor teacher stipends as listed in the motion there. I ask that those items be approved.
Okay, so may I have a motion for approval of the superintendent's consent agenda? And just a reminder, we are excluding item E, that is 10E.
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Naaman moved, and I think, was it Ms. Etter that seconded?
I did, but she can't.
We'll give it to Ms. Schukert then. Is there any further discussion of these items?
Just some updates. Caitlin is moving from a teacher's aide to a teaching position in the district. So she's going to be in that first year of that RESA program, the resident educator, which is a lot of work. So there's no dissatisfaction with being a volleyball coach, but she really wants to focus on this her first year in the classroom. Matt talked about the change on the PSI agreement, hometown ticketing with what the guidelines that we have as far as admittance to the events, and in an effort not to take any money at the events at all, we're going to go to hometown ticketing. So parents of any of the participants will be able to have their tickets, and we'll be able to scan them at the gate. We can also take care of visitors in that way too. So Platform Athletics is online phys ed program. Agile Sports Technology Huddle is what we currently use our coaching staffs in boys, girls basketball, wrestling, football, and I think soccer all use. They use that as a coaching tool that also has some expanded capabilities this year. And we think we're going to be able to stream games live from our stadiums. So with a limited attendance, that people will be able to watch the game from home. I know some grandparents that can't get out to games because of what's going on. They'll be able to stream in and watch some of those games. F, the CARES school CARES program. We have 2 students out of Mentor CARES, special needs students. The Chamber of Commerce is our annual membership with the Chamber of Commerce. Rip Show Studios, we just brought on for a 1-year contract with a new principal coming on middle school, high school. He and Mrs. Houchin will go through the process of interviewing photographers next spring. Moving forward, we generally try to sign a 3-year contract with that, but with all the craziness with the ending and closing of the last school year, we want to make sure we have a photographer on. So when we get students back in the building, we can get pictures taken of the students. And then the supplemental contracts for the junior class advisors. Mr. Seitz and Mr. Pasica do an outstanding job as class advisors in junior years. The big load because that's where they raise a lot of their prom money. Teacher mentor stipends. Megan Neville, Johnny Roy, Beth Pavick, and Deb Petrunia are going to be teacher mentors for our new teachers this year. That's part of our resident educator program. Gary Miller has taken over as our lead mentor, filling the role that Nancy Weinerka stepped out of. But big shoes for Gary to fill. But those teacher mentors, see some of them have a teacher in the first year, some of them have second year, some third year in that program. And that's why the amounts vary, because of the amount of work in each year. And I would ask that those items be approved. Any questions on those items?
Hearing none, may we move then to a vote on the superintendent's agenda?
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mrs. Schuker,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. Now let's go back and separately discuss item 10E, approval of the communications contract with Aaron Graham Consulting. We'll first need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
It needs
I'll
to
move.
be read. It needs, the motion should probably be read.
Motion to approve communications agreement with Aaron Graham Consulting for the attached agreement effective July 31, 2020 through August 1, 2021 at a cost of $45,000.
Very good. That motion being made, I'll second it. So at this point, we can open it up for discussion.
I'd like to start, if I may. I looked at this and thought about it quite a bit, and I just did not feel that in this state where we are, quite different from where we were a year ago when we approved this contract for the Aaron Graham communications contract of $45,000. I just didn't feel that this was like a full-time position, and I don't think that we got full-time service. And I just didn't think in our climate right now that maybe we'd be more prudent to either save the money or use it in a different way. I don't know if we got $45,000 worth of communications work this year. And quite honestly, this is a type of position that would be at a school, a much larger school than ours. And this was not her only job. And I don't feel that she gave us full-time service. I'm not exactly sure what she did, to be honest. I know what she didn't do, because at one point this year, a staff member approached me to get media coverage for an event, for something that was going on at the school. And I started to do it, and then I said, you know what, that's not my job. We have somebody on staff that's supposed to be doing that. But what's troubling to me about that is that this staff person didn't think to go to our communications person. They decided to come to me to try to get media coverage for something. With that being said, again, you know, at the time we were looking at our capital improvements project and the possibility of putting a levy on the ballot, and circumstances changed that we had no idea were going to change our directive of what was going to be more important at our school. So at this time, I would just say that I don't think it's money well spent, and I'm not looking to approve this contract.
Okay.
I also have some concerns. I guess I'd like to know what we have gotten for the first year. I don't know exactly what she has worked on for us, what the projects that she's taken on. I know she's done something, was big part of some things, but it would sure be nice to have a listing of all the benefits that we have gotten from our first year's contract. No, we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen a monthly report. Here's what I did for you. And for somebody who's in communications, we had had very little interpersonal communication with her. And that concerns me. And as Mrs. Etter just pointed out, I'm wondering how we're going to use her going forward, because COVID-19 has certainly changed all of our direction for the time being. Without having a better idea of what we've gotten for the past year, the benefits we've gotten from this contract for the past year, without having a better idea of what we're planning to do in the coming year, I also am very hesitant to move forward at this time.
Well, I would say that, first of all, that if there's a lack of reporting to you folks, that should come from me. You know, Erin should be working through me and I should be reporting out to you. I will tell you that she was involved in all of our levy conversations prior to the outbreak. She was in the building for meetings. And as far as staff members contacting her directly, we didn't give free rein for staff members to contact her. Staff members had to work through either myself, one of the building principal, or one of the building principals. So our staff was aware that if they had items, they were made aware on multiple occasions that they could get information to me, and then we would coordinate through Erin on that. Erin, as Tom puts together the Tom Talks and gets that released on a monthly basis. But I know that our new guidance counselor, Mrs. Thrasher, has already been in touch with her about promoting some of our things in our guidance office through that. And quite honestly, one of the reasons we knew that this was not going to be a full-time job for her, that she had other clients as well. But quite honestly, the cost of a full-time employee would far exceed $45,000, because we would include benefits with that as well. So this, while it may not appear to be a cost saving and a full-time personnel, then is someone on our staff that we are working as we can do tonight. We can choose to move forward with Mrs. Graham or not move forward with her. And I certainly understand, but recently I need to get more communications out. I've been so busy with some of the preparations that I have not communicated enough. And she has reached out to me and asked me for some things. And so a little of that's on my end right now. That's, I can put together a list for the board if you wanted to lay it what exactly was done. I work with Erin, but I certainly understand where you're coming from on this. And we had some of these conversations last year when we brought her on. This was a change from who we had used previously. I just know that district-wide, it's much the format. Some of the formats she's created and some of the things that she's done have made it a lot easier for us to get some of our publications out. So.
Tom, can I ask you, do you feel like prior to when we had her, you've been able to have a lot of your time freed up? Is it a significant amount of time before that you were spending on correspondences and so forth?
It's probably, I'm probably spending about 20% of what I used to, because then I would have to go through and I would have to format it all. I would have to drop it into some type of template. I would, because I'm not a professional publicist, I would send it out to my administrative team and have them kind of look over it, make sure we cleaned it up. I don't write, I write in a very conversational style, I've been told. So, sometimes we have to look at that. So Erin does those things for us right now. Yeah, the amount of time that it would take for me to, there's a reason that they came out as infrequently before. And then when Erin came on board, I know when we got in the beginning of this, the crisis here, that I was sending out 3 or 4 a week just to try to keep people up to speed on what was going on. Obviously, I need to get more out right now, but we've been so busy on planning and trying to get ready for the opening of school that I have a Tom Talks in my queue right now that I haven't completed. That's on me. That's not on her. She's been kind of asking me, where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? So.
I just want to add, in my opinion, I like what she's done. I was on the board when we didn't have somebody, and I saw the amount of time and energy it took and the things that it took away from administration. I think that as far as the levy goes, although we were in a surplus this year, and we had a really good financial year, we've talked about being in the deficit spending, and whether it's, an operational levy or whether it's something else, we know that that's inevitable. We also know that this whole thing with COVID is changing. I don't want to say daily, but it's changing rapidly. And I think that communication is key. And we also have, the elephant in the room, the mascot, and all of that, when we're ready to pick our heads above water and deal with that. So I think it's essential that we have somebody in that role. I like that she's reached out to different groups. I know she was, again, prior to COVID, she was coming to the BEST committee meetings. She was, she seemed to be reaching out to a lot of different groups. I don't know that her role in the summertime is as necessary, if you will, as it is, now that we have some extracurriculars going on. We have, the academic year is about to begin. I feel like there's great potential for her to do those things. And I would just say to any board member that feels like she's not working to her potential, if there's something specific, maybe that's something that we need to give Mr. Evans feedback on, or her directly, if there's something we want to see. Another thing, wait, one more thing. I'm super excited about our Miss Holly Thrasher. I got to have a conversation with her about a side topic that has to do with school counseling, but I think the potential there, especially now that our kids are remote, and to talk about preparing seniors for college and application process and all of that, I think Erin can have a huge impact on that process. Communications are going to be key right now because we're not in person. So when we go through this vote, that's why I'm going to be voting to keep her and to extend, to approve this contract.
If I could add a little more context to the comments that have already been offered. I think the board, in one of its reviews of Mr. Evans, not this last one, but the prior one, had expressed some concern that we thought that there were too many demands being placed upon his time. And we had a conversation about how much time it takes for him to basically lead our communications effort in the absence of any support. And so that led to him doing some research and then developing this contact with Ms. Graham. She made a presentation at a board meeting last year and has been providing, I guess, what I would call a lot of kind of behind the scenes communications activities. And maybe that's part of the issue here, is that we, and I'm speaking collectively, are not seeing necessarily what Ms. Graham's output is, where we see it run through the superintendent's office, and we're not necessarily being able to discern or differentiate between what work effort and work product she's expended versus what Tom has. But I will say that I feel strongly that we cannot ask our superintendent to assume and wear all of these hats, including that of being the communications expert. It's just, I don't think it's reasonable. I don't think it's fair to him. So I do feel that if the board believes that that Ms. Graham is not the appropriate vendor, that we need to have an active conversation with Mr. Evans about who or what entity could fill those shoes, because I don't believe it's fair to Mr. Evans or his team to ask them to be doing the communications responsibilities for the district, because communications is extremely important, particularly in this environment.
Especially right now too, when, their days and hours are very limited. I would rather see a sane administrative team than Mr. Evans to, keel over or something because of the stress from, having to do all the additional tasks. Sorry, Tom.
Well, and to be, you know, to put it in a real clear context, we as a board, I believe, asked Mr. Evans to reach out and develop some communications alternatives because we felt, and I'm going to speak for myself, but if other board members disagree with what I'm saying, I believe that we had made an observation that we thought that there were too many demands being placed on Mr. Evans's time, and I think that he and we agreed that communications, him leading the communications effort, as laudable as it is, wasn't probably the best use of his time. So that's kind of where we're at now. So again, I think we may discuss and we may differ about who the vendor is, but I do feel that in fairness to Mr. Evans, as well as the board, standing behind its past observations about Mr. Evans's performance, I think we need to understand that his job necessarily involves a great amount of communications, and that I don't think it's fair to put that additional burden on him.
Yeah. What I think is ironic about all of this is we are discussing the communications expert for our district, and we have had very little communications with that expert as her first year contract is ended, and she's asking, and we'd like to continue her for a second year.
Gary, I don't think that's true though.
I certainly don't want Mr. Evans to sit down and do this. I want Ms. Graham to tell us, here are the services I provided for you. I'm speaking, please. Here are the services I provided for you this past year. Here's what I anticipate going into next year. It could be that COVID-19 has just made it difficult for us to see what's happening and what contributions she is making. I'm not saying I don't want her. I just want to understand better what I've gotten this past year and what I would anticipating getting by doing her contract. And again, I don't think that should come from Mr. Evans. I think it should come from Erin herself.
Right.
Exactly.
If I could add one other
Communications expert.
if I could add one more footnote to this conversation.
That's my opinion. I'd like to see us table this until we can get more information from Erin. That would be my preferred option.
Okay, well, I would support that. And I would also note that as a board president, one of the responsibilities that is unique to the president's job is that that person has to review and sign off on a lot of contracts. And I have reviewed Ms. Graham's invoices, and I have asked that they have greater detail. She has given us a little more detail, but not of the type and scope that I think all of us are contemplating as being necessary to understand what services she's providing. So,
well, can be shared. I mean, maybe if we all were seeing that too, sure, we wouldn't be as,
Well, again, I think you'll find it's fairly minimal. They initially were quite skinny, and I asked for more detail, and we're getting some additional detail, but I think it could be expanded. And maybe this goes to what Mr. Sajaki is suggesting, that maybe we table this item and go back to Ms. Graham and ask her to fully describe the services she's provided over the last year, and what she would provide going forward.
And I just wanted to interject too, so a little bit of my comments as well. So I mean, I think that your comments are fair, is to look at, all the details of what has been done over the past year and what we're going to be doing going forward. And I think that's a fair request. I do believe though that this is a critical role, especially like this year, just like was mentioned in the previous discussions, because I mean, like we're in the situation of pandemic that communications needs to be very, very critical to our district during this time frame. And I don't believe like this time that's a well intended use of the superintendent's time at this point. And so I think that this is probably well worth it. And it's probably even less than what a full-time employee would be out in corporate America for basically a communications specialist to be working on this for us. So I think it's probably well worth the money. I just want to basically see if we can lay out the what she's done and actually what is in the future as well. I think that's a fair ask.
Can I just say, I want to interject one thing. It was never my intent when I brought up this discussion to add more responsibility to Mr. Evans. That's not my intent here. I'm asking us to look at this and see what the value that we're getting for our money. And I don't feel that we're getting $45,000 worth of communications work here. And why can we look at the option of trying to do this internally or at a reduced amount? I really don't believe that someone who admittedly says that this is not a full-time job for her because she has other clients as well, that we should expect full-time service. And that's not, I don't believe that's what we're getting. Again, I don't want Mr. Evans to take on more responsibility. I'm asking to see if these communications responsibility could be done internally, could be added on internally, or at a reduced cost than what we're paying right now. And remember, we're talking about one person on our administrative team who forego a raise this year because of our financial climate and the possibility of our deficit spending. At the same time, we're almost rubber stamping someone getting a full-time salary for something that I don't think we're getting our money's worth. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things to that. I talked to two other possible communications people. One was not local. They worked. Mrs. Etter, I think you might have been there. Yeah. And I think hers was kind of a la carte, and I think quite honestly, even with what we did, hers would have come out to more than what we paid Mrs. Graham at that point. And then the other one was local, but the board, we decided to move away from that one. All three, quite honestly, have multiple clients. The woman from Southern Ohio works with a law firm now, and she just reached out to me not too long ago, and I think she probably has about 7 or 8 school districts that she works with as a communication specialist. And those are districts that don't want to incur having someone on staff full time to incur that cost. As with the person that we had previously, I know that person is working with 4 districts here in Northeast Ohio right now, and trying to service all 4. So kind of piecing it together to make it a full-time work for them. So yeah. So if I gave the impression that it was, I know it looks like a full-time salary. I don't know that districts that have communication specialists have anybody working for that amount. Quite honestly, the bigger districts and the smaller districts are doing as we do. They try to piece it together the best they can. So
I'd like to make a motion to table this until we can get more information from Mrs. Graham about what she has done in the past year and what she anticipates coming in the coming year. I do not want us not to have somebody. Mr. Evans, you have more than enough to do right now. And I don't want to put that on your lap other than to make a phone call. This request, but that I would like to put that motion out on the table if this appropriate at this point, Mr. Dobbins. I don't know.
Yes. So
can I ask? So does it influence if we hold off on 2 weeks? Does that change anything? Because in the next 2 weeks we start school. Like, does that impact her services?
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because the way the contract timed up last year, one of the reasons we had this dated back to August the 1st was because she'd done some work for us. Am I not correct with that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I don't want to say something inaccurately, but I'll reach out there and ask her for a summary, and then I'll also invite her to the next board meeting, and you can do some questions and answers.
The contract is actually back to July 1st.
That's what it was. I think that it went back to July 1st because for whatever reason it cut off in June, because I think we got a July bill, and when Kathy looked at the contract, I thought it just, like most of our standard school contracts, run through the end of run from July 1 to June 30th, and that was not the case with with this one. So Matt will double check. I don't want to speak out of turn on that though.
Okay, so we have a motion that was made and seconded. And Mr. Suchaki suggested a tabling motion. I'm not sure procedurally how, do we have to vote up, down on the contract, or can we set that aside and vote to table? I'm not sure how that we work.
Mr. Dobbins, just one other comment too.
Sure.
So like, just to go back to what Ms. Sugart's question was, is that how does this affect us for like the next month? Because if we don't, wait 2 weeks, is this an appropriate thing to sign a monthly contract right now to get us through the beginning and then make that decision? I mean, that's another option probably too, I would imagine.
Not without us having a monthly contract in front of us, so.
Right, that's the problem.
But we could always go back, again, this is back 2 months, so I would just hate to see us not hire her and then she's done 3 months of work.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of the concerns can be remedied, with a staff email or, explaining to staff her role again and how she can be used and what, how to go through the process of contacting, Tom, having her come to a board meeting and share again what she's done and what she will do. I don't know.
So
your last comment there, Mrs. Schuker, and have her come to a board meeting and explain what she's done and what she will do. And the previous comment about making sure the staff knows that they can work through whoever Mr. Evans likes to set up, either her directly or through one of the other administrators, however he wants to do it. I would leave that in his hands.
And she did address the staff last year at the opening. When we opened school last year, she was there and she addressed the staff about some things. And she had said, some of the social media strategies that she used. So she was there in front of the staff, and I just asked the staff at that time. And again, that was a one-time thing at the start of the school year. I didn't then reiterate at any point in time outside of the administrative team that they knew that we worked through one central area that if you had things for Mrs. Graham to get them to my office, and we'll get them to Mrs. Graham. So I didn't want staff members reaching out individually to Mrs. Graham because there needed to be some kind of funnel for it to go through. Just, either my administrators and my principals know that they can contact her directly. And like I say, with the new guidance counselor coming on, she actually reached out to me and said, "Do we have someone?" And 2 weeks ago, I said, "Absolutely." And I gave her Aaron's contact number and so she could contact Aaron directly to get some things out. So could we use her more? Absolutely. I don't, no question about that, but I'll bear some of the burden on that too, I need to get some things in her hands as well.
I think COVID affected this too. I mean, let's be realistic. Like, she was attending BEST committee meetings. She was actively involved with like the parent group and things like that. So, I don't want to be just slamming her and saying, oh, we're not getting our money's worth. Well, COVID has kind of shifted things and really affected things. And it's changed people's roles in a lot of ways. So, I think us voicing that there is a concern, I wish personally board members would have done that a long time ago if they saw that this was an issue, so we could have corrected it rather than saying months have passed and there's concerns. But, we are where we're at right now. And, if she can hold tight for 2 more weeks until we can get more information so that we can put it to a vote, great. If she can't, we might have lost a really good, communications person.
She was at meetings with the architect as well. So the meetings she was at probably 2 or 3 meetings with GPD as we were getting to the end of this too. So, and I didn't report that out to the board. We had those meetings that were just kind of ongoing with GPD up until this all. And actually, our first comeback meeting is tomorrow with GPD, but we're just kind of regrouping from before we went out of school. So Matt's taking the lead on that, and I appreciate Matt doing that for me at this point. So
when she was at these meetings, what communications came out of those meetings?
Well, we were talking about what strategies would be, quite honestly, and talking about permanent improvement versus operational, and what that looks like and how you present that to the public in a campaign and the different strategies involved with that, looking at some of the different numbers and how it might weigh out, because the numbers make a difference on the strategy as well. And also the type of levy, whether it's a bond issue, a permanent improvement, a combination levy, and because obviously a combination levy is relatively new, and that would have taken a lot more information to the public to let them understand that it's kind of two rolled into one and how that worked. And we had actually had a lot of discussions about that and and even threw some numbers on the table and how that would play out with GPD in the room to say, here's knowing that we're going to space this out over time, what that would look like. So, she was in the room when she initiated some of those conversations, and she talked to us about things that have worked in the past, and also even the timing of levies. We knew the presidential election was coming and spring versus spring levies, and she had statistics on levy passages and at different times of the year and how they're put on the ballot. So she had done her homework and knew we were going with that. So
I think something we need to keep in mind though too is that our job as board members is not to micromanage. I think that we look at our leaders to see, do we feel like, does Tom feel that we're getting our money's worth? And when we have questions that come up, if we feel like, oh wait, we have a communications person and we haven't heard from her in 5 months or whatever, then we need to be asking those questions.
Lindy, in 1 year of her being as our communications person, I did not receive one piece of information from her, not one communication.
You don't get any Tom talks?
Of course, I do get those, but
Okay,
I'm
well,
saying
those communications from her.
anything separate. I really don't know what was done in the communications field, and that's why I'm questioning this, and that's why I'm questioning the value. And I think it's a good time for us to look at our finances, and I'm not micromanaging. I'm just asking the question, and because the contract is up now, this is the time to discuss it.
Well, I think that should be a discussion all along. If you're feeling that strongly about it, those are things that should have been, those should have been conversations that were occurring throughout the school year. But
if you recall, at the beginning, I also felt that the amount she was being paid was too much from the very beginning.
I remember that.
So I'm just reiterating it right now, and I'm just asking the question. And perhaps maybe Ms. Graham will look at it as an opportunity to still stay on board with us, but perhaps at a reduced amount of money. So we were paying communications before at $2,000 a month. Are we getting twice the amount of communication value since this past year than we had from before? That's what we asked.
I will say the difference is it's something that's not just for one board member, that she's going through the superintendent and not putting things out there that board members don't agree with. So, if we want to compare to past communication companies, I don't think we want to go there.
No, we don't. I'm just questioning the amount of money at a time when we should be looking at our finances even closer.
Okay.
So, given the conversation, do we table this for 2 weeks and get more information and distribute it to the board members of what Ms. Graham's done over the last year?
I'll make it easier, Mr. Dobbins. I'll just pull it off the agenda at this point, and I'll have some additional information for the board for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I think that'll be helpful for everyone to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 10E has been removed from the agenda. We are now on superintendent's reports and comments, agenda item 13.
Okay, let me scroll over here. Some comments from me. First of all, as far as the remote startup, I want to tell you we distributed 237 Chromebooks were picked up today. Both elementary, middle, high school had it going. Hats off to the entire administrative team, principals, Mr. Young, Mr. Wallace, Mr. Hartman, all the support staff. Things went incredibly smoothly today. People came in, had their masks on, went through it very orderly. We got, the teachers did a great job of having all the things set up in the gym. Elementary, they brought them to the cars. Middle school, high school kind of had a one-way path through the north gym and then into the auditorium if they needed a Chromebook. So a great job by everybody today. It was great to see some of the students in the building, to see some faces I hadn't seen in a while. I miss them terribly. We'll begin some online orientations next week with quote unquote a soft start, where the teachers are going to kind of do an orientation with their students and go through some things on Google with them to get them ready. And I know some of the parents are getting antsy about how that's going to work and what it's going to look like. So we have to get the devices in our hands first of all. And if anybody has specific questions as far as their student or their building, I think the principals have both put out videos, some introductory videos and some about how things are going to roll out a little bit. I should have double checked before to see if they're on the website or not, but we'll get those out. And if you haven't got communications and you're listening out there, that means that we don't have a appropriate email address for you, because I know when the principals mailed stuff out, they both I believe they mailed it and they emailed it out. So make sure that we get the contact information for you, because this is a time when we can't have people not get the information. Athletics and extracurriculars, that discussion, there are some comments on that. I want to tell you that we've got about 150 students participating in that totally. We have 70 band members, we have majorettes, we have cheerleaders, we have the different sports teams, and they're all working towards those extracurriculars. Boys and girls golf and boys soccer have already had competitions. We had a boys soccer game last night. I want to commend Mr. Kelber for the setup of the stadium. We taped off the bleachers. People were spaced. We had a list from the opposing school. Everybody's really kind of doing their best to make this thing work best possible so that the people can get out and see the kids as well. As far as the COVID-19 update, obviously very, very excited that last week that the county moved into orange. That's probably a couple of weeks of where they led us to believe it moved into orange. And they also followed that up and emphasized that they're looking for a sustained decline in those numbers. So they don't want to be in a position where we're in orange one week and red the next week in school district, because they know that school districts throughout the county are making their decisions based on where that is. And as I said to a parent today, if we were in purple, this is a very easy decision. We're in remote. If we were down in yellow, this is a very easy decision. We're back in school. Right now, where we're sitting at is where the toughest decision has to be made, and we're doing the best we can with that. Again, with the goal that we want our kids back in the building safely, that is first and foremost, and always will be the goal, to get them back in the building. Some updates on the remote learning centers. My hat's off to the mayors. They had some questions for me, but all three villages have been incredibly helpful with this. We believe we're going to have. I know we have some space. Dave Wallace, myself, and Jim Zerbola went out last week. We measured spaces. We looked at tables. We checked Wi-Fi connections. We have a pretty good number that we think we can accommodate. I spent the better part of a week talking to support staff about repurposing. We don't need as many teachers' aides right now. We can move some teachers' aides there. Some of my secretaries can work remotely from those sites. I have some bus drivers that we can move to supervise some students. So we're manning those students, manning those places right now. I spent the last 2 days doing that. I will get a survey out tomorrow or Friday. It's another questionnaire for parents that are interested in it, because we need to know the interest. So we can determine how many we can put. We know what we can put at the sites. If we have more than what we can put at the sites, we might look at having to split it up a little bit. But right now, we're hopeful that we can get every kid at a site. We know we've got a middle school, because we went K to 6, and I know some parents have contacted me about some 7th graders or middle school kids that might need a place that they run on a little bit different schedule. So the thought was we would have all the middle school kids at one site, and then their siblings if they were involved at the same site. Also working with food service, where the parents would be able to, if they didn't want to have their student pack the lunch, they could order lunches and pay for them online, and we could have them delivered to the sites on a daily basis. spent some time talking to the nurses today about what their role. We want them checking at the sites, and know that administrators will be rotating out through the sites to help with supervision on a regular basis. So things are moving with that. I know not as fast as people would like to, and I know many working parents are kind of getting antsy for that, but that will be out this week, so we can get an idea what those numbers are and where we can start putting some students. So really, it's come together. Got a really positive response from our insurance company. We're covered on liability wise, and the villages wanted to know about that. We would do all the cleaning and maintenance of the positions. We'd be allowed to leave the tables up. All 3 villages have given us spaces where we don't have to tear stuff down and re-put it back up every day. So we could clean up and clean the restrooms at the end of the day and be ready when the next day comes in. So still working on some check-in procedures, because we know that as parents drop off, we want to make sure that we have them checked in properly on that end of it as well. We had the students spaced 8-foot spacing. The table dividers are coming in as well. We'll put the table dividers over there for the students and have the masks. So we're getting to where we need to get to. I didn't want to make an announcement sooner because I had too many pieces that we hadn't finalized. We're getting a whole lot closer, and really it's time to get the questionnaire out so we can determine how many students how many parents are interested in this. I know I've gotten some emails from some. I've tried to fill them in as much as I could at the time, and I appreciate the patience from the parents on this, because I know that many are just back to work and they're very anxious about this. So we're doing the best we can. It would be 4 days a week. It would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So if we come back in a hybrid, it'll mirror that hybrid situation where Wednesday will be a deep cleaning day where we go floor to ceiling and clean on those days, and use those days to contact students at home and make social emotional checks on kids, as well as some other things on. So it'll be a 4-day-a-week program, no cost to the parents. There's no cost involved in this. We're not charging a fee, and somebody had asked about that as well. So want to get that out there, but I'll have all that on an information sheet that goes out with the request for those people that are interested in that. So that will go to everybody that we have an accurate email address on. So again, if you haven't been getting stuff, please get in contact with one of the offices so we have your correct mailing information on that. So thank you. That was lengthy, and I appreciate the opportunity to get some of that information out, though.
I just had one question. At these remote sites, is each person going to be temperature tested?
Yeah, we're gonna have they'll get temperature checked on the way in, and we'll have a check-in desk. The parents are gonna have to walk them to that desk. They can't let the kids. They're gonna have to walk them into that desk, and we'll temperature check with the parent right there, and then make sure they've got their lunch and their Chromebook that they need, and then the parent can leave, and they'll be. We're gonna run them from 7:45 to 3:15 as the time frame, because the elementary schedule starts at 8 o'clock. And ends at 3. That gives it 15 minutes before for drop off and 15 minutes at the end for pickup as well.
And masks obviously required in these.
Masks required. We'll have extra masks out there. The nurses are putting together kits for each site as well, med kits. And then when we know what students, we can gather emergency medical forms. And if there's a medication or that type to be distributed, we talk to the nurses about being on site and helping to distribute medications if that were needed, moving forward with it as well.
Thank you. And I just want to say thanks to you. I know you're working tirelessly trying to get this all together, and all this extra responsibility and job shifting around for everybody. I also want to say publicly, thank you to our communities, our villages, and their cooperation with this. It really means a lot, and it shows again what a great community commitment we have, and what a great partnership we have with our villages. I just want to say thanks to the mayors and the councils for working with us with these remote learning sites.
They've been fantastic. I would echo those comments, Mrs. Etter. They've been truly great to work with.
Very good.
That's it for me.
Well, that was plenty, and I thank you for the level of detail, and that everyone is craving for detail and information and communications, and you and your team are doing a good job of pulling off a very difficult task. Moving on to agenda item 14, board committee comments and reports. Do any of the board members have anything they'd like to discuss this evening?
I do have. Go ahead.
Mr. Dobbins, I have some comments.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
So what I wanted to do is today is that, and actually this goes back to the public comment pieces of this too, is basically I wanted to just be transparent in what I, where I stand on everything too. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to provide, why I support the administration and, the decisions that have been made for remote learning and also the continuation of extracurricular activities. So I'd like to take a few minutes to do that if you wouldn't mind. So over the last several weeks, I've had, have received and read a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, and I took many phone calls too to answer questions from, basically people from the community in the district. The decisions that are made for Cuyahoga Heights school districts are always, and I stress always, first and foremost with the kids in mind. For those of you who don't know me, where I am at is I have 2 kids in the district. One is in 8th grade, one is in 12th grade. And, my kids are, as you know, in very important years in the school at Cuyahoga Heights. So like, I'm very aware of the importance of education, extracurricular activities, graduations, homecomings, proms, senior days, etc. So I know that that's all what's ahead for our kids this year. And so what's very kind of like disheartening to me is like that, I've been in the district for 17 years and I've never really seen this close-knit community be more divided when it comes to these COVID-related education topics. And these decisions have been like really extremely difficult to be made over the last several weeks, especially with conflicting information coming from like national, state, and county levels, and with the school districts then being placed in the position to interpret the varying medical recommendations to make these decisions. So due to the lack of coordinated and clear guidance from these folks, this has become a very political issue, and it really should just be based upon education and medical facts. And then to compound these difficult decisions, everyone comes from a different perspective or hardship that when we can't walk in everyone's shoes. So these like COVID-related hardships or perspectives range from losses of income due to cell phone businesses, family members that may have a compromised immune system, children that actually need maybe additional assistance in school, having seniors in high school, having family members where both parents work. And that's just to name a few, because we can go on and on and on about these things. But, so I think everyone looks at these decisions from a different perspective, depending on their situation. And all we can ask is that everyone have some patience, tolerance, understanding and compassion with the district, with other parents and with other students. And this will go a long way in getting everyone through this crisis together. So now I'm not going to debate anyone on the validity of medical data and statistics, because this becomes just a circular argument. It really is difficult to determine what is really factually correct nowadays, or what's not correct. Depending on your stance on these decisions, you can always find an article, data, or selective data that supports your stance in either direction. Now, I'm not a medical professional, neither is everyone on the board or administration. We're educators, attorneys, accountants, auditors, information system professionals, journalists, etc. All we can do is rely upon the local medical professionals who are the experts in the medical field within Cuyahoga County to give their recommendation on best practices for how the local school districts should start their years. So with that being said, I do support the remote learning initiatives at the school to begin the year. My decision was really based upon that Cuyahoga County Board of Health recommendation, which is really the best local medical guidance that we have for the district. However, I do believe in a lot of things that the CDC guidance says, and also the American Association of Pediatrics and what they're saying. But this is really a national perspective, not the best local guidance for a district. Furthermore, in considering the alternative of being in school, I started thinking about that. Well, so what's the alternative? And this really is not going to be a pre-COVID school if people are thinking that's going to be like that. The teachers and students would have to wear masks for 7 hours each day in a school that's not air conditioned. So during the first 2 months of school, we 80 or 90 degree days are pretty much a commonplace. And then this combined with like staggering bell schedules, difficulty in performing group work, fans that have to blow away from the kids in during hot days, social distancing in hallways, lockers, during lunches. So this wouldn't be the social emotional outlet that everyone's anticipating to be for in-school education. The in-school learning environment would be very challenging and very uncomfortable for both the teachers and the students, which is not really an ideal learning environment. This remote learning initiative will also provide our ability to gather some more data related to COVID-19, and regular monitoring of county statistics may lend itself to hopefully bringing back the teachers and students back safely to in-class learning in the near future. Additionally, I do support the continuation of extracurricular activities. And these extracurricular activities will help students fill in that emotional, social, and physical needs that they've been missing. The key to making this decision for me with the extracurricular activities where they are voluntary, as opposed to the public education, which is a mandatory. Those that feel uncomfortable with extracurricular activities can also choose not to participate. And I know that the Cuyahoga Heights coaches and the participants in those different extracurricular programs are doing a tremendous job right now following the guidelines during practices and games. I've attended the practices and games that my son participates in, which is soccer, cross country, and I can attest that the diligence of all these protocols are taking place. So I guess in kind of closing, it is okay for everyone not to agree with every decision that we make, but I will ask that the opinions are respected in both ways. So if you have a concern, what I'm saying is just, hey, talk to me. And give me a phone call, and I think that will alleviate a lot of anxiety, and also the spread of basically misinformation that can be avoided through the district. Lastly, I just want to basically say one other thing, and this is really just a note of appreciation for all the efforts that have taken place to prepare our students for the start of the year. And this is really a sincere thanks to everybody. I know I'm going to miss out somebody, but thanks to really Mr. Evans, Mr. Young, Mrs. Houchin, Mr. Janatovich, Mr. Wallace, Mr. Muccio, all the teachers, the supporting staff for the leadership. And I know that there's endless hours being put in to get us to the point where we'll be able to start school here in another week and a half. So sincere thank you for all that. I mean, your unwavering dedication to the district and getting through these tough times is what makes this school district really great. And so I'm proud to be part of it. I'm proud that my kids go here. And so I thank you to the bottom of my heart, really. And so that kind of concludes what I needed to say.
Thank you, Mr. Naiman. Mr. Tsuchaki, did you have comments?
Yes, I do. Tomorrow is the Career Center board meeting, but I have a preview for you. And one of the most interesting things in the preview this week is that we got attendance statistics based on the 8 districts that are part of the Career Center. And Cuyahoga Heights schools have the highest percentage of students attending the Career Center of any of the 8 districts, which I thought was a tribute to Mr. Evans and the rest of the staff trying to help students to be goal-oriented, career-oriented early in their school lives, early in high school. And I think that's great. Secondly, I did have the opportunity when we did our agenda meeting review last week to take a tour of the building on the day the building opened. I was not able to enter classrooms. That was forbidden. All I could do was walk down the hallway. But for those of you who have been walking down that hallway, you can see into most of the classroom areas. It looks pretty normal over there compared to what most other districts are able to do. But remember, there's a major difference between what a career center does and what the rest of the schools do. You cannot practice wiring a building or doing construction or giving haircuts or running machinery, doing auto body or doing auto repairs. You just can't do that remotely. It has to be, you have to be physically present in order to earn your certifications when you graduate. So there are some students who are going remotely as much as they can, but and will be on site if they wish to earn their certification. They'll have to be on site for a minimum designated times. Otherwise, they have a choice, either completely remote or completely in attendance. And the attendance is pretty large, but people are spaced out. I saw one instructor who had verbal instruction going on for this, and I don't remember which course it was, but he had 2 classrooms because he had too many students for the one space. And he was in one classroom, he had a Zoom meeting going for the other half of the class, and there was a monitor in there. So they could see him, he could see them, and there was a monitor making sure that all things were students were doing what they were supposed to during the session. And I found that to be a very interesting approach to doing what you had to do to keep people separated. And again, visitors aren't allowed in the classrooms. I wanted to speak to one of the teachers. The superintendent went in, had the teacher come out so I could talk to that teacher for a few moments, and then they switched places again because to minimize contact, I was not allowed to go into any of the classrooms. So, and from a transportation viewpoint, we've been sharing with Independence, as I discussed with Mr. Evans, at the present time, we are not doing that. We are doing our own. They are doing their own for the time being until we get things worked out a little bit better. I would like to mention the Garfield Heights must be spreading their students out on the buses because they're sending 4 buses a day now. Normally they were only sending 3 buses a day, so they must be spreading their students out to provide more distance in the buses. So we are doing our best to try to meet the guidelines, but in this situation, there isn't a whole lot of choice. There has to be, if you want to achieve the objectives that you've set out to achieve by attending the Career Center, then there has to be at least some on-site participation even during this COVID emergency. So just wanted to bring you up to date on what's going on at the Career Center. That's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
That's very informative and enlightening. Thank you, Mr. Suchakian. Mrs. Schukert, do you have any comments this evening?
I do, and I apologize. My computer died, so I'm on my phone now, and I don't even know how to really work this whole thing on my phone. But my thoughts are kind of discombobulated, so I feel like they're all important, but they're not going to go in any good order at all. One question I had, and this is Mr. Evans, are we thinking about bringing students of the month back? Is there any way, or like some sort of student recognition moving forward, even though we're going to be remote?
Absolutely, and the teachers came up with some great ideas where that we would go out to the houses of the students and place student of the month signs in front of the houses and try and do something at a distance in recognition at the homes of the students and record that or FaceTime it live, whatever. And that came from the teachers. So I want to thank them. I know that the principals kind of put it out there, and as always, our teachers are pretty creative with that kind of thing. So looking forward to doing that as well.
That's incredible. That's so fun. I just like 2 cents of my thoughts on that. Like, it's amazing, even though these times are super challenging, that we're able to find ways to celebrate that kind of go above and beyond and are different and unique. I think about graduation in that sense. And, that's a memory that those kids are always going to have, even though it was different. Okay, moving on. We attended, a couple of us, opening day last Monday. And I just want to thank the staff. I feel like everybody was just so positive in that meeting. There weren't, I guess I kind of expected maybe some people to feel a little bit down because of what we're walking into and how the year's starting. And I really feel like the staff, everybody involved had their heads held high, from administration, teachers, custodial staff, lunch staff, assistant staff. I mean, everybody just really was holding their heads high. And so I just appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for getting that staff spotlight started. I think it's again, another great way to recognize people, and it's a feel good kind of thing that is definitely useful during these times. On a more serious note, financial committee meeting, Mr. Muccio, if you're still with us, what are we thinking? Are we thinking maybe like late September? Sure. Okay.
Works.
I will send a doodle out, and for anybody listening, if you have financial experience and want to be part of the finance committee, please email Mr. Evans and or I, and I will forward that information to you. Good luck to the athletic teams and the extracurricular participants. It's great to see, you know, I've been driving my kids all summer long to the school, and it's great to see those people in person, as you said, Mr. Evans, our students. It's great. I want to say thank you to Mr. Evans, another thank you, for just putting our students and staff and their safety and making that a main priority during this. I know as an educator, I know these times are not easy, and you have continued to put students first. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, I just want you to know how much I truly appreciate everything that you're doing. And you talk about missing students, so I want to let you know that you could have my 3 anytime, anytime you want. They are yours. And I just want to end on, this is something I found on social media. And I feel like this really just goes out to kind of parents right now and educators, both of those roles, which I currently am. But I like the positivity in this. And so I'm going to read just a couple lines. Let's give this school year the opportunity to be awesome. Don't throw a label or judgment on it before it begins. It may just surprise us in big, beautiful ways. And so that's the end of my public comments tonight. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Mrs. Schukert. Mrs. Etter, do you have anything this evening?
No, just my thanks to everyone and all their efforts. I know these are challenging, trying times. And as has been said, as we do, we put our students first, and in everything that we do, we're trying to make sure that we present a safe learning environment for them. So again, thanks to everyone and all the work that they're doing to get this school year underway.
Thank you, Mrs. Etter. I'm going to make a couple remarks about the 2 big issues that our district's been dealing with, and that is the remote opening and the extracurriculars. And I think it's important for the audience to understand that I have no expertise in epidemiology or public education, so I have to rely on experts in each field. And in my case, my experts are the Cuyahoga County Board of Health and the CHS administrative team, respectively. And as Mr. Evans can attest, it's not a blind allegiance, as he and I have discussed these issues many, many times this summer. I'm sure far more times than he'd care to remember. But I appreciate his time and his commitment to taking into account our kids and our staff's health. I also have read and listened to all of the comments that we've received, and I appreciate each of those. With respect to the remote opening, that's a tougher question, given that, as everyone knows, there's a differing point of view between the Board of Health and our administrative team relative to the extracurriculars. I have been to a football practice and a cross-country practice. Mr. Martin spoke with me about the way that he's had to modify his coaching and team preparedness. I've also read his health protocols for his players. And I've also read the public comments and listened to all of them. And after having done that, I need to support our administrative team based on all of those inputs that I just referenced. And lastly, I'll note, as others have, that I think it's very important that we put extracurriculars in the context that these are voluntary activities that the students and their families voluntarily agree to undertake. It's taken a while for me to arrive at these conclusions, and I thank all of you for your patience to date. My views could change, and I'd argue they should change if our county or our school situations change in a material way. And with that, I thank you all for your time. Do we have, moving on to agenda item 15, do we have any future agenda items? Hearing none, I'll go on to item 16A. It should be noted that the Board of Education members received their agendas several days prior to the actual meeting. Thus, they have had considerable opportunity to study it, ask questions, etc. Upcoming regular meetings will be held Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on September 9th, September 23rd, October 7th, and October 21st. At this point, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mr. Naaman moves. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I heard 5 ayes, myself included. The motion passes 5-0. It is 8:55 and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, all.